And we welcome you to Transform Our World, New Orleans, Voice of the Kingdom. And we have a very special guest tonight. We have Erika Faye with us. Hey, Erika. We're so glad to have you, Erika. Erika is, she works with, she's on staff at Transform Our World. She does a lot of the videos, a lot of the social marketing for Transform Our World. You know, any of those fancy videos you see, Erika's behind it, and you may not see her. And she's also has done so many things. You have anything else to introduce?
Well, one of the things I had to say about Erika is, Erika, you are so intelligent, so beautiful. Your commitment to God is incredible. And I am just like blown away by your depth with Jesus and your depth with God and your just willingness to, for years and years and years, to just follow him. And all over the world, Erika's been all over the world, and all the people that you know, that you've gleaned from, but that you've also been able to give to. So we are, our people here, you guys are just going to be blessed tonight to be able to hear Erika. And I know she does this this class and stuff. I don't know when she's doing it, but because she's leading an ecclesia, and Ed has just decided that Erika is Transform Our World Los Angeles. Okay, so she just put on a big thing for Ed and Transform Our World in LA. So Erika is, we are in for a great treat. So whenever you do your thing, Erika, you know, let you tell us, but you let us know so we can let our people know in case they want to be in your class.
Thanks, guys. I just thank you for the honor and privilege of being here. I love HollyKem and Dean. I mean, you just can't not. So it's so honored when they asked me to come share. I have to admit that I'm extremely, this is a daunting task to try to cover Song of Songs in such a quick time. So if you could just give me grace in terms of, I kind of like didn't prepare, not because, I mean, I've been preparing for like 8 years on this. So I've been in this book for probably 10 years. I mean, on the regular, I've taught it many times. I wrote a children's curriculum on it. I've wrote poetry out of it. I've written, I mean, so it's not like it's like in me. And I think there was just something tonight about, I think I should just freelance. And I just like show up and like see what comes out, like Holy Spirit, like real time, you know? So I hope you enjoy just my free flowingness tonight, because it is really, I mean, you could spend, I think we're going to be studying this book for thousands of years. That's kind of like my preface to this book. And unfortunately, it was truly hidden in the last few centuries because of, I think, a lot of misogyny and just a lot of the enemy against the revelation of female, male, reflecting the image of God. And I think, and then marriage becoming kind of a very institution instead of a reflection of what, you know, what Paul says is that marriage is actually, the mystery of marriage reflects Christ in the church. And I think there's been an attack on this book and the confusion of it. I mean, I think how many of you guys can just be honest with me that most likely you thought Song of Songs was just about marriage.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's real. I mean, if you had told me that when I was 20, we used to like joke around and send like love notes to people and be like, your breasts are like coconuts, like, and just laughing, right? Like, just like like reading it and being like, okay, this is so like non-applicable and just seems like almost illicit and like explicit in the Bible, right? But actually, just so you guys know, up into the 15th century, it was considered the Holy of Holies of the Bible. And it was considered actually a revelation of how God treated his bride. And that, I think, is what's so significant about this book. So if we could just take a moment, I know we've already prayed and I came in late, but if we could just ask the Holy Spirit to block off all of the cultural and religious mindsets that have kept us from receiving this book as it is, like the glory of the book. So let's just take a moment. And so, Lord, we just rebuke just the devourer who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And we just say, Lord, would you enlighten us today on this book?
Yes.
Do you really renew our minds on intimacy with God, intimacy with each other, and really being able to see with fresh eyes of enlightenment today. I think someone was praying that earlier, of just to know your heart, how deep, how wide, how long, God, your love is for us. There is no it's inexhaustible, your love for us. And that marriage and sex and all these things were actually a shadow of what union with you looks like, and how we walk in partnership as the bride who's becoming in every season of her life. So amen. So what I'm going to try to do tonight, I'm actually a little bummed. I don't know if you guys have heard of the controversy that's happening right now with Bible Gateway. I just realized that as I was getting on, they actually have an issue with the Passion translation of Song of Songs. So I would highly recommend to get the Passion translation of Song of Songs. I don't know Brian personally, but I've been around his ministry for a very long time. And just to preface and kind of defend him, his scholarship is, unbeknownst to anybody, like probably one of the deepest, most intellectual scholarship on the Bible that we've seen in probably 100 years. I mean, he submitted all of his translations to 5 different, he submitted as in the process of redoing the Bible and going back to the Aramaic and going back to the actual original text. Like, he has been without a fail flawless in how he's approached scholarship of translation. But anyway, so I'm going to be working from the NIV tonight. If you could let me share my screen, Dean, when it's ready. But so I do like Song of Songs Passion translation the best. I think it brings out and really highlights what the Father was trying to say in this book. But NIV is great too. So before we start, I apologize, I didn't do a PowerPoint. I know some people are visual. We all have different ways of learning, but I wanted to just really, first of all, kind of lay the foundation of this book. So for how I teach it. So there are 1,001 ways that you can teach this book. I have heard everything from Mike Bickle to Brother Yoon in China to, everybody's got their way and their methodology and their revelation of what this book, how to approach this book and how to be transformed by it. But tonight, I'm just going to share you my unfair advantage, my corner on the market of what the Lord has released to me through this book. And really for me it's being able to understand prophetic patterns in your life and how to partner with the Lord into greater levels of maturity and mature love. Okay. So I'm going to back that down. And what I mean by that is the Lord is cyclical. He is Jewish thought is in patterns. I don't know if you've noticed that, but the Lord likes to repeat things. You often are going to have cycles in your life. You're going to be replaying things. Belief systems are going to play out, and it's intentional. In Hebrew thought, we are meant to do things over and over and return. There's a returning to things, and there's a maturation that happens as we continue to return. So we're not in a linear mindset. Okay. We're not in this the Enlightenment really did a number on us and understanding the ways of God, because God is actually he's cyclical and he's cyclical. Seasons teach us that, right? But we aren't just moving into this progressive line of enlightenment. We're actually returning and relearning and hopefully resetting sometimes when things have not been the way that the Lord intended, right? And so really this book is the story of the Shulamite, and she is this beautiful, shy, completely insecure woman who has been chosen by the king to be his bride. And you see her progression from chapter 1 to chapter 8 of how he leads her into wholehearted, mature love. Okay. And so each chapter has themes in it of how the lead. I always kind of go into salsa. Like it's when you do salsa, it's all about partner dancing, is about feeling the lead of somebody. You can't anticipate the next move. You have to actually know the cues. Any of you guys salsa dance or anybody do partner dance? Okay, cool. You know what I'm talking about. It's really the man that makes the woman look good. As long as the woman knows the cues, she can follow the man anywhere that he's leading. And really this book, and what I mean by prophetic patterns when I opened up, is that if you can see the cues of how Jesus is leading you in the moment, you can figure out what chapter you're in and how to respond rightly to him to be able to move forward into mature, wholehearted love. Does that make sense? And this is my thesis, and I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show you how it plays out over and over and over again. But, you know, it's so funny because I often ask the Lord, what chapter am I in? I'll be like, Jesus, where am I at in the book? Like, and it's so funny because you could be in chapter 2 in one area of your life and chapter 8 in another. It just doesn't matter. It's not cyclical. It's not linear. It's cyclical. And there's, you know, the Lord is always a constant gardener. He's constantly like figuring out, where are you? You know, what did your, based on your obedience, disobedience, where are you at now? And it's all love. It's all pure love, right? But truly, it is about responding to the lead of Jesus in every season of our life. And that is truly what helps us mature in love as we allow ourselves to be led by love, right? And I love teaching this book actually to non-Christians. It's my discipleship plan. I actually teach non-Christians this book, the first book that I show them. I would say John or Song of Songs. And the reason why is because not one time in the entire book is there a critical, condemning, or angry voice from the bridegroom to his beloved. Even when she's in sin, even when she's in disobedience, even when she is like checked out to lunch, he is never harsh, he is never critical, and he is never condemning of her. And I really love that because I use this book to help non-Christians understand the tone of Jesus, if that makes sense, how he is going to lead them, even in their brokenness, even in their disobedience, even in their stumbling. He is always calling her forth into who she is not yet. There is this, like, I think that's what I love about this book. It's about becoming. And he's always leading her by who she isn't yet, but he's like, this is who you are. Like, step into it. And it's actually calling her into that space. It's giving her the space to become. I'm working on a book right now called The Space to Become. And really what it is about is the Lord's words are prophesying over our lives every day. This is who you're becoming. This is who I see you to be. And that's how he leads us. He always leads us in love. So if there's like one takeaway from this book, I would say, look at the leadership of Jesus. Look at his tone. Look at his kindness. Look at his strength. Look at his beauty. And that truly is like, we become as we behold him, right? And so that's why I say, like, I'm going to give you the skeleton prophetic patterns of this book, so that you can kind of go back on your own. Because like I said, I've been in this book for 10 years and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be here probably for the next 50. And then when I graduate to heaven, I was like, I'll be teaching this book over and over and over again. And the Lord will be showing me how every season of my life reflected these patterns. And he's going to be showing me everything that he did to lead me in love and to lead me into wholehearted, abandoned love for him. Right. Any questions? That was a lot. I kind of just threw out. I want to make sure that I am not talking too fast. Are we good?
Doing good.
Okay, good. I teach this class with meditation. So I do a lot of stopping and breath work and praying and asking the Lord, what are you saying to me right now? So this is a little bit different for me because I'm giving an overview, but just so you know, that's kind of how I approach this book, is really slowing down and just looking at it from the patterns that I'm seeing and then asking the Lord, okay, where am I in this story? Okay. And then finally, I wanted to just go into one last thing that I won't go into so deeply, but I want to just throw out there for those that are interested, especially because Dean and HollyKem are therapists. There is a fascinating book I believe it's called Renovations of the Heart. But it's actually written by a neurotheologian. And his thesis basically is, he spent decades trying to get people out of their sin, trying to get people out of their brokenness, right? And just people they're so sincere. Like, they want to be free, right? They want to get help. They're showing up. They're doing the things. They're being disciples, right? They're, waking up early to spend time with Jesus. And yet they're not actually seeing transformation, right? And that was kind of this thing that just really threw him off of like, what are we doing, And it was in that process that he began to study attachment theory. And he began to say that, realize that the Western methodology of discipleship is heavily predicated upon belief, what you believe, right? I believe this. These are my statement of faith. Like, we have the Lutheran statement of faith. I grew up with that. I can rehearse it, with you. Like, we have these belief systems. But Jim Wilder basically made the hypothesis of saying, what if it isn't about what we believe as much is that who we belong to,
Wow, that's good.
And he goes, what if it's actually attachment to someone else that transforms us, not necessarily what we believe about that person or the mindsets, whatnot. And so as he started working with a couple other like psychologists, and they began to see breakthrough in people who had never seen breakthrough when they began to shift and have the focus be of attachment. And so as you look at this book with me tonight, I want you to keep that in mind, because this book is about attachment. It is about safe, secure attachment on the safe line of connection where nobody is controlling anybody. They're showing up on the same line. Anytime like the bride's trying to get away, Jesus is doing just what he needs to do to get her back to the safe line of attachment where they're co-equals, co-partners. Not one is controlling the other. One is leading, but he's not controlling. And there's a difference in that. And he's leading by love. And I think there's a lot of religion that we get controlled. We have, even the way that we think God speaks to us is like, you have to do this. You have to marry that person. You have to, do this or that. Right. And the Lord's like, no, I have invited you into a partnership, a co-equal partnership, and that's where like really the Romans 6, 7, and 8 come into play, where we are dead to sin. And the greater revelation of that becomes that we're married to Christ, we're co-equals, we're seated with him, and we're co-reigning with him. It's not something to happen. It's something that's been accomplished on our behalf. Right. So like this book has just so much in it, so many implications. But what I want to do today, how I'm going to kind of structure it, I'm going to go through it really quickly because we don't have a whole lot of time. But I want to just point out a couple of the screenplay of this book for you, so you can see what is the narrative of this book, and then you can go on your own time. You can reach out to me. I actually might be teaching this class somewhat quickly. I've been in the conversation with a couple different organizations right now to teach this, but the first chapter I'm going to pop up real quickly, Song of Songs 1. And like I said, normally I'd have us read this and we go a lot slower. But basically it opens up with the first part. She goes, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. And then she keeps going, take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. So I want to just preface this. The opening of this romance is a yes from the woman. Do you see that? It's a longing. There's no control here. This wasn't like a man coming in saying, I pick you, you're mine. I think it's very significant for the book to open up as the one that's being pursued invites the pursuer. Right. So this is like about attachment once again, of like, I have full autonomy in my decision to be pursued. And this is where her story starts. She's seen him from afar, obviously there's trust built, and she's like, yes, like his love is better than wine, right? More delightful than wine. I want you to pursue me. And that is kind of like starting off with the fact of like, it takes God to love God. Like we can't pursue God on our own, but we have to ask God to woo us. It's like that, it's like, I was just watching this dating video. This guy was hilarious, but he's like, it's a woman's job to attract and approve. Like he saw, not pursue, attract and approve. And I was just like laughing, but it actually, like, there was kind of some truth in it. I was like, actually, that's true. Like, it's like, you gotta the man comes to you, but like, you give him the yes, like I'm ready to go in this direction, and that's where it makes it the co-equal partnership. Not one person is dominating the other person's heart, right? And that's where the safety, the goal is safety, right? In all of our relationships, the goal is safety, and where we're hearing each other, we're partnering with each other, and we're individualized, but we're partnered, right? We're not enmeshed. And that's, I think, like what I love about this book is it's the healthiest reflection of a couple that is not enmeshed, that is not coercive, but is actually fully individualized, but fully partnered. And Jesus is leading her, and she is learning how to let him love her and challenge her at the same time. And by the end of the book, she challenges him. She flips it on him, and she actually looks just like him, which I think is the goal. We want to become like Christ. So he's making himself a partner that is equally yoked to himself, right? God says, don't be equally yoked. Don't you think that means his bride? Like, he's so committed to making sure his bride is equally yoked. She's not anemic, and she's not codependent. She's actually extremely, extremely fierce and has opinions and has a partnership value of herself. And she values her voice in the conversation, right? All right, so that's the opening of that. So then like we have the friends. I should probably gonna go through this a little bit. So we have, she is the Song of Solomon. Her name actually means, Shulamite. It means one who finds peace. Okay, so by the end of the book, she actually has a sentence. She says over herself, in your eyes, I have become like one who found peace. So really the anxiety, she started, so that's like insecure attachment. I would say like at the beginning of chapter 1, you're seeing like the fruit of insecure attachment. She's kind of up and down, doesn't fully know, wasn't super confident in love, not confident in herself, not confident that she is able to do this yet, right? But this is like but I love what I love the process of is the Lord loves her in every season. He is so in love with her in every season. There is no change in his love and his commitment to seeing her progress, right? And then we have the friends, who I think are, you can interpret it different ways. I believe the friends are younger believers or pre-believers, people who are watching our lives and are kind of going, what's happening over there? like what is that love story? Do I want to be part of it? Like, it's the people around your life that haven't awakened yet to the intimate fellowship with Jesus that every person is being offered, right? And then obviously the bridegroom is Jesus, is the leader, the lover of her soul. And then we have one more character. I think it's it depends. I haven't done an IV for a while, but it's the voice of the Holy Spirit. It's actually the Holy Spirit that broods in the water. So he kind of comes in at times. So you'll see kind of these different characters play out. But and then we have the elders. And the elders are people who are leadership in the organized church. I would say like ecclesia. These are people who are whose role is to steward and fellowship, or steward and mentor and take the overseers. That they're called to take care of the believers in like they've been entrusted with the sheep, basically, right? So those are the characters. So she kind of goes in there, she goes, how right they are to adore you. And then she goes, dark I am, yet lovely. And then she starts to go into this whole thing of like, I am not worthy. Like, so this is like insecure attachment. Chapter 1 is like, I am not worthy of you. You are beautiful. Like, everybody should love you. Nobody should love me. Like, it's all those tapes, right? Of like, I'm a worm theology. Like, that's what we say is right here. Some people have never going to graduate from that, which is such a bummer. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, I have to be honest and be sharp here with the issues Gateway right now. I actually believe they have some worm theology that's happening there. They just can't see themselves as the bride that is loved before she becomes, right? And so anyways, so she kind of goes and she's kind of like self-focused, she's introspective, she's looking at her issues, she's got tons of problems, she's got tons of issues. There's just baggage. Okay, this girl's got baggage. So just like see yourself in this whatever area of your life where like, I am not enough. This is what she's saying right now. She's like, you're beautiful, but I'm not enough, so I'm gonna stay away from you, kind of like. But it's like kind of fickle, and you see how it's like insecure attachment. She like wants him, but then she's scared of him because she's like, I'm not good enough. And it's like this really like, just really complicated. She's just complicated. She's like got issues here, and but then she like falls back on it and she gets her courage again, and she goes, but tell me whom I love. I love you. I know I'm up and down in my insecurity and my self-esteem right now, but please tell me, where can I find you? And then that's where her friends go. If you don't know, most beautiful women, follow the tracks of the sheep and graze your young goats by the tents of the shepherds. And so what she's saying, what's really being said to her is, go look for him. Like, he is going to be found by you. Like, go have that courage. And so this first chapter is really when you find yourself in a season where you're just like, I'm not enough. Spend 6 months in chapter 1. Look at this, look at how this is playing out for her. Like, she has all these questions about her identity, and yet the Lord says, come find me anyways. would you come find me anyways? And then he starts to praise her. I liken you to like the mare among Pharaoh's chariots. Your cheeks are beautiful, and he just starts to tell her who she is. And so that's where we allow the Lord to love us. We have to allow him to speak these things over us daily, hourly, if needed. Right. And that's where she starts to go, oh man, at his table, my perfume spreads. And then this is what I love. This is my favorite verse of this chapter. And I would say is for myself, the theme of chapter 1, which is, she goes, my beloved is to me a sachet of myrrh resting between my breasts. Myrrh, anybody know what myrrh is?
Oil, right?
Dean, I feel like the scholar in you knows.
Well, it has something to do with suffering love, huh?
It does. That's the translation actually in the Passion. Myrrh is a burial spice. And it is reminiscent of the finished work of the cross. So what she gets a revelation of in this chapter is that she is able to take the finished work of the cross and she puts it over her heart, and all that shame, all that condemnation is now covered by the finished work of the cross. So that is lesson 1 in chapter 1 is I will not move forward until I have a revelation of the finished work of the cross that covers everything that I could feel insecure about, right? So that's chapter 1. So you're dealing with the finished work of the cross. You're struggling with believing that you're not a worm. Chapter 1's for you. Okay.
That's a good word.
That's a good word.
I'm going to try to go quicker here. So I know we're running out of time. So the next one is finally, she bolts out. She's got the finished work of the cross revelation. I am the rose of the lily. I am the valley. So she's declaring over herself these statements. I always tell people, you see a statement you want to be, you start declaring it. Like that's who she is. She's like, okay, I have to step into confidence in who this is. And then what happens here is she goes, like an apple tree among the tree forest is my beloved among the young men. I delight to sit in his shade. Chapter 2 is a season where she's awakened to the finished work of the cross. And now she's just resting in his love. And she doesn't have to do anything. There's no expectation here. She's failing. She's probably in debt. She probably is like having issues. I don't know if you guys have I've had seasons where the Lord was like, you're a mess, honey, but I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to love you, just be, and so that's what I would say, like chapter 2 is, it's this season where you're just unconditionally loved as you are, and you're doing nothing. And the Lord is just showering on you. You can see it in religious spirit when people watch people's lives and like, they have unmerited favor they just shouldn't have. You know what I'm talking about? Like you're looking at people and you're like, why are they getting so much grace? They're a freaking mess. And it's like, because the Lord's got them in chapter 2. Don't awaken love. Right here, it says, do not arouse or awaken love until so it desires. This, I believe, is one of the most poorly translated, interpreted verses in Song of Songs. What is context here is he's saying, don't move her. Don't move her from this place of love. I am doing something in her spirit right now. She needs to know she's loved unconditionally. Don't force her out. You know who forced her out? Martha. Wow. Do you remember that? Mary is like, drops everything and she sits down at Jesus's feet to be loved on and strengthened with raisins, refreshed with apples. And Martha, the religious spirit, comes running in. How dare you? You didn't work for this. You shouldn't sit at his feet. So you have to go after this. When you are in a season where the Lord is saying, do nothing, you are going to hear the Marthas coming at you. And you have to get stronger and stronger in saying, no, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. No, I'm going to sit here until I fully get what the Lord has given me. And then I'm going to go. Because then Mary got up. She got up and she served. But we forget that, and so we can't serve without levels of love poured out on us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so all of a sudden, but guys, Jesus is not codependent, and he is not like a prince rescuing in to save his girl codependently all the time. He knows the right moment to get her to move. Okay. So your friend that you're watching and you're really irritated that they're not moving yet. The Lord knows how to put the pressure on them to get them moving when they need to move, right? But don't be that person, okay? Guys, don't be that person for yourself, and don't be that person for somebody the Lord is loving on. Let the Lord discipline his own people. Okay, that's my biggest discipleship model when I was in youth group. I used to be a youth pastor, and I was like, I'm gonna let the Lord do this. I was like, I'm gonna let them, consequences themselves are gonna hit these kids, right? But what happens is Jesus reveals himself. He goes, look here. She goes, listen, my beloved, look, here he comes, leaping across the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle on a young stag. Basically, what's happening here is she's getting a revelation of the strength of Jesus. Mountains are challenges. When you see mountains in Song of Songs, he's talking about spiritual warfare and challenges, things that you don't necessarily want to do. It's mountains are places of death to self, death to what you want to do, death to like needing to move forward with God, and it looks dark and scary. But what's happening here is he gives her a revelation of like, I bounce on this stuff, girl. Like I this is easy. I walk on water. This is what happened with Peter. He saw Jesus walking on water. He was being strengthened by love, and he all of a sudden saw Jesus, and that what gave him courage to jump out of the boat and go find Jesus, right? But then he goes, hey, I'm gazing through the lattice. I'm gazing through the windows, peering through the lattice. What the Lord does is he reveals his strength. So he's strengthened her with love. Then he reveals his strength. And then he pins himself into a point where he sees fear in her life. He looks into the window of her soul and he goes, ooh, that right there is going to block connection, is going to block her not obedience, like servitude, her ability to partner with me. And I got to get that out. And that's the Lord chooses in the season that you're in. He chooses what is it in the lattice that he's looking at. And you just know, we all know, when we get honest with the Lord, he's like, that's blocking connection with me. And then he strengthens her and he says, arise, my darling, get up out of that. Get up out of that fear. Get up out of that addiction. Get up out of that coping mechanism. I'm telling you that the winter is past. The rains are gone. Now, what's funny about this is it hasn't happened yet. He's proclaiming it's still dark. She's sitting in the dark still, but he's saying, hey, spring's about to come. Get up. Like, let's go. And that's part of the prophetic is when you hear a word and it looks like everything went the other way, that's because the Lord is saying, I need you to believe in a spring that's coming. I need you to strengthen yourself with spring, because we know that when winter comes, what's coming next? Spring. He has taught us that. He is so faithful in cycles to teach us these things. So we get strengthened the more that we practice this, and we start to realize he's saying to us, get up, girl, let's go. And then he goes, come away with me, come out of that fear, come out of that addiction, come out of that past season of obedience, even could be a good thing he's asking you to come out of. And then he says, show me your face. I want to see your voice. Your voice is sweet. And this is what I love. I wrote my children's book on this, and it's been my favorite thing to watch kids get this. Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyard. And what he's saying is, I need you to renew your mind. It's your mindsets. It's those little agreements. It's those things. It's those shame voices. It's those little coping strategies that no one else sees but me. If we got to catch those, because that's going to block you from being able to go on the mountain of challenge with me. And he's so kind. He's saying, I'm going to do it with you. Like, I'm not leaving you by yourself. We're doing this together, but I need a yes from you. Right. And then he goes until the date. And then, he casts this whole vision, girl, we're going to go. It's spring. It's still dark. And she goes, I'm yours. I love you. You love me. But until the day breaks and the shadows flee, turn, my beloved, and go your own way. Basically what she's saying is, I'm waiting till it gets light out. I'm waiting till I have all the answers, and then I'll follow you. Right. So she says no here. This is the times in our lives where we say no to the Lord. We're scared. We're not ready yet. We're like, we want more raisins. And the Lord's like, no, like, you're getting fat, girly. He's like, we got to keep moving. So what I want you to see here is how he treats her in this place. Are we good on time? Sorry, guys. I'm like, not even like
doing good.
Okay.
Keep on going.
Our people are good.
All right. Cause you guys could throw me off, but I just love Jesus. So what ends up happening is she says no to him, and he's not codependent. So he goes, okay. He goes, it's not about the raisins, not about the cakes. It was me. You want me. So I'm going to move just far enough from you to get you into a place of discomfort, because I know you really want me. Do you see that? I know deep down in you, you want me. So what ends up happening is all night long on my bed, I'm looking for the one my heart loves. He's nowhere to be found because she's not where he went. You see that? When we feel the manifest presence of the Lord lift, oftentimes it's because he said he told you to do something, and you didn't do it. And he's not correct. He's not like punishing you with shame here. There's no shame here. He just is like, okay, do your own thing. And it's meaningless there. It's like even when you stay in a season of last year's obedience and you don't move quicker to the next season, and you're just kind of like writing out last year's yes. And the Lord's like, no, but I asked for something different. I didn't ask for that. I asked for this. And it's like, it becomes stale, right? Those moments in our lives where we're just like, this isn't working anymore. And it's probably because you need to go back to the last thing he told you to do because you didn't do it. Right. And that's where this pattern in the cycle here is. And he's saying, and so she gets up and she's like, okay, I'm sick of this. I need to find him. And she starts running and she finds the watchman. And she's like, where are you? The watchmen are the city churches. So she goes to the city, basically, which is the church. So we have to go to the church. This book is about teaching us we need community life. We need to sometimes we're going to have to ask people to help us to find Jesus. So she gets up. She's looking for the church leaders. She's looking for him, but she needs the church to show her where to go. And she's asking him. And so she finally finds him right after she sees the church leaders. And she goes, I found the one my heart loved. I would not let him go until I brought him into my mother's house. And then this is where we pause again. Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you by the gazelles of the field. Do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. This is so key. She has been disobedient. And yet the Lord wants, even as her sincere yes to him, in as weak as it is, he stops to embrace her. So when you've gone through a season of disobedience and you finally get yourself like up out the door to look for Jesus, you are greeted with only unconditional love. There's no like, how long did it take you to get here? I can't believe you took 6 months to go around that 10 years. I can't believe I had to do that for 10 years with you. No. He doesn't even mention her disobedience. He just loves her and he praises her and he's so grateful that she made it there. And so we have to get that mindset that the minute we turn to him to be obedient, there was no waiting room of like, why'd you take so long? It's actually like straight back to the apples and raisin cakes. And you got to refresh yourself, break off the shame. Don't dwindle in it. And then all of a sudden, this is like one of my favorite things that he does is he goes, who is this coming up from the wilderness like a column of smoke, perfumed by the myrrh and incense? And he goes, look, it's Solomon's carriage, escorted by 60 warriors, the noblest of Israel, all of them wearing the sword, all experienced in battle, each with his sword at his side, prepared for the terrors of the night. King Solomon made for himself the carriage. He made of wood from Lebanon, and it keeps going. Basically, what's happening is he's holding her and he goes, hey, honey, I know you're scared. You need a greater revelation of my strength. And that's what happens is like when we finally set our heart to say yes to him, he then outpours a revelation of his strength, of how he's going to conquer the mountain with you. And what he reveals to her is that like 60 warriors are going with them. There isn't anybody who's going to take her out in the darkness. And not only that, but he made the carriage himself. And I love it because it's like in the thing of Song of Songs in Passion Translation, it says like the marriage carriage, like the Song of Song, like the Song of Solomon is like, he made the seat of taking the wilderness with her, for her in mind. Like he's done it all for love. And this is my favorite line in the entire book. And it goes, look at King Solomon wearing a crown, the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, the day his heart rejoiced. And so it's like, not only does he reveal his strength, but second, he just says, hun, actually another translation says the day of the gladness in his heart. The king is like on the way to his wedding, and he just reveals how much it means to him that she would partner with him. And so there is just I could go so deep into this, but the theme of chapter 3 is that you let him love you when you've come back out of disobedience. You don't move into obedience. You get up to find him, but like there is this breaking off of shame before the assignment comes, right? So now she's got her yes. And chapter 4 is the first chapter where he actually calls her his bride, because she has finally said yes. So he's like, she's always been the bride in his mind, but he was waiting for her yes. This is a co-equal relationship. There is no coercion. He's not like, you're my bride. Like, he was like, you have to decide you're my bride. When are you going to decide it? That's the question I hear the Lord saying right now. When, not just real time, just us right now. When are we going to decide we are enough? Like, we are the one, like, we're the chosen one, you know, like, that's it. And that's where he just starts praising her. He starts telling her who she's becoming. And he basically gives her a vision of the woman that she is not yet. Now, I want to remind you here, she hasn't been obedient yet. He asked her to go to the mountain. They haven't gone to the mountain yet. They've gone to the city, and she found him a little bit outside of the city. So she hasn't done the assignment yet, but yet he is telling her, this is who you are, because we need to know who we are to be able to take on assignment from the Lord. Like, for example, Gideon had to know he was a mighty warrior to get the hell out of that wheat threshing thing. Like, if he didn't know he was a mighty warrior, he was going to stay there, and Israel was not going to win that battle. So we have to know, that's why the prophetic ministry is so important to us. We have to know, who are we right now to be able to take on the Goliath that we're facing, right? And so that's what he's doing right here. And you can go into all of this all you want. There's so much symbolism and all these different things, but and then she makes the commitment, until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh, which is the mountain of death. I will do the obedient thing, and I will go to the hill of incense. This is one of my favorite chapters, because this is a key to how to overcome with the Lord. Mountains are challenging. They can take you out. You can die in the process, right? Hills are easy. Hills, anybody can take a hill, right? Very few can overcome a mountain, right? So the mountain of myrrh is the decision to die to yourself. And the hill of incense is the choice to have a prayer life. And I love it because Mike Bickle says in his teaching on this course, you want to take the mountain, you better have a prayer life. So I just know in my own life, the minute my prayer life goes out the window, the mountain becomes impossible. So what the Lord is saying here is, I do the big things, you do what's easy. You train on the hill of prayer. You contend on the hill of prayer. Anybody can pray. It does not take a lot to take a 5-second prayers throughout the day. Lord, strengthen me. Lord, help me in this situation. Lord, I yield to you. That's what the hill of incense is. And you can see it in ministries, especially people who come into, I live in Los Angeles, people come to LA and they're like, I'm coming to LA, I'm going to save it. And 5 years later, they're like, they committed committed adultery or something. I'm not trying to out anybody, but I do want to make a comment that I think it's because they lost a prayer life. And so that's how pivotal our prayer lives are. The minute your personal, the thing that you can do, the 30-minute thing you can do every day goes out the window, the enemy has a field day because you've lost your strength. It's like the virgins that have oil and the virgins that don't, right? That's what's happening here. And so she commits in this chapter, and that's right, like I said, right where he calls her my bride. This is the first time that he verbally says it to her because she has agreed. It's her choice. And now he's like, yes. And then he goes, look, we're going to go up. We're going to go up against the leopards, which is talking about spiritual warfare, but you've stolen my heart before they've even done anything. He's like, I just want to remind you, you've stolen my heart. This isn't about the assignment. This isn't about what I can do with your life. This isn't how I'm going to use you to disciple nations. He's like, I'm doing this because I want to have eye contact with you every single moment of this mountain. And I want to actually see you come alive. I'm doing this so you come alive. I'm not doing this so the nations get discipled. I'm doing this because you're going to be my partner and I can't wait. And that's just like the affirmation in our assignments. Our assignments are about us coming alive with Jesus. Right. And that's the strength that he finds in this chapter. And he just starts going, like I said, I keep going, but just keeps going up about her of just like, you are my lock garden. I'm not sharing you with another. Like, this isn't like, I'm not using you. Like, I think the enemy loves to use, when you read through Hosea, it's like the prostitutes and prostitutes themselves being used by men, by the nations, right? Her beauty is flung out through the nations. The Lord's like, no, you're my locked garden. I'm not throwing you to the nations. I'm not using you. I'm not trying to get something from you. I actually just want you to know me. And I want you to know me, to know you. And that's really what's happening here. And so I can go, there's more stuff here, but then this is what this charge, this pattern where she goes, awake north wind and come south wind. Now I always flip this up, but the north wind is blessing and the south wind is challenge. So the south winds are harsh. They like give you like the chapped skin and they push against you and they like strengthen you and give you resilience. The north wind is the one that kind of like refreshes you. And so what she's essentially saying is, I need both to work in tandem in my life. So the Lord, I generally believe that no matter how hard your season is, there is a north wind blowing too. And like, that's the goal of our lives, is to be able to see the tandem work of the north and south winds. The Lord is not going to demoralize us. So if one area of our life is really, really bad, like ask the Lord, where is my north wind? Like, where is it that you want to help me? Like, what is the blessing in this? What is the strength in like, what is your refreshment in this? Because I can't just take on the south wind. They always come together. And I just know in my own life, when I look at it, some of the hardest seasons of my life, I am so cognizant of the north winds of the Lord and like how precious he is, to make sure we're not demoralized, even in challenge. Right. So now we're getting into chapter 5. I can keep going. And this time she's asleep and he knocks on the door, and it's late at night, and she's all cleaned up. She's got the finished work of the cross on her. She knows she's good. She said yes. There's no disobedience in her heart. And he goes, hey, he's like, his hand thrust through the latch, and he's saying to her, he's got like myrrh dripping from his fingers. And he's saying like, would you come with me? And before she can even open the door, he's gone. And she's looking for him. So she's being obedient here, and he's inviting her into a suffering love. I mean, I think all of us can know, when you walk with the Lord, we don't invite suffering out of like a bad theology here. This isn't like flagellation in like Russian intelligentsia. Like, this is, sorry, that just got a little literature on you. Like, this is not like self-imposed martyrdom where you're like trying to find every negative thing that you could attract, and so you're more holy and you look like you're serving the Lord. This is like a God-ordained season of suffering where the Lord is asking you, would you walk this out with me? I want a partner. I would like to be not alone in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? Didn't you remember that? He asked the disciples, would you come? Would you just stay an hour with me? This is what this is. Like, and I see it like play out in TOW of like, would you feel the heart of your city with me? Mm-hmm. Would you feel the pain of this industry with me? Would you stop and feel the pain of your father right now with me? And like, would you partner with me to bring healing to the situation, or to find a pathway forward? So this is what's happening. And she's wholehearted, but she's confused. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's just going, okay, yes, I'm here. I'm running. Where are you? But you're nowhere to be found. And on her way to find him, here she finds the church, and the church leaders are in the city. And she's asking where. Last time she asked the church leaders, she found Jesus. This time they beat her. And this time they bruise her. And I don't know if all of us can relate. I have 100% of a relation on this one, of being completely betrayed by the church itself. When a leader turns on you, when you get backstabbed, when the church that you served fires you, when the leader that was supposed to be your shepherd just doesn't reflect Christ and hits you and bruises you. And that's like it's like here, this chapter 5 is so applicable to all of us. We've all gone through like a season where the church, we hate the church, not hate it, but like the church wasn't Jesus, and the church looked ugly, and the church had flaws, and the church had issues, and it turned on us. And so we see that in America today. People are so deconstructing their faith, but what's so purified about our bride here? She's not even interested that she got she's lost her cloak. She's bruised, she's broken, but she goes, daughters, Jerusalem, younger Christians, I charge you, if you find him, tell me where he is. Like, she's just kind of like, I don't care what just happened to me. I don't care who just failed me, because the one person who won't fail me is still out there. And she's like, I got to find him. And so it's like in every season of suffering, especially when people hurt us, and especially when people hurt us who weren't supposed to hurt us, right? That, like, our parents, or, our elders, or our spiritual covering. I have several stories of this for myself personally, and I've heard the Lord in those seasons. I've heard this chapter, and he says, but would you just say, where am I? Like, don't leave till you find him. Right. And then it's right here where the friends, this is like younger Christians, pre-believers. How is your beloved better than others? Most beautiful women, how is your beloved better than others that you charge us? Right. I don't like the way this is translated, but really what she's saying is, these girls are saying is like, everyone else would quit. This stinks. Like, why are you following this Jesus guy? Like, he makes your life hard. And like, that's really what's being said here is like, isn't there somebody else you could date that would be better? Like, wouldn't somebody else treat you better? Or like, when we go through a season where we look like God's favor is lifted off of us, and kind of people come around us and they're like, so why are you still walking with God? Like, God, how's that working out for you? Right? Like those accusations from the enemy against our king, right? That's what's happening here, is they're saying like, why would you hold on to him? And then all of a sudden she, for the first time, just starts going off about how his beauty, he's radiant, he's ready. There's nobody else like him. I don't care what just happened to me. You should see him. When you see him, you're going to understand. I'm going to understand. Right. And she starts evangelizing in the midst of her suffering. How many times have we been in suffering? I've been in suffering. I've had non-Christians come up to me and say, how are you still holding on? And that's this evangelism right here, where she's saying, I'll tell you why I'm still holding on, because this is who he is. This is who he is. And that's how in their seasons of suffering, we get to be the most incredible witness to the world of the love of God. And like, I just feel like, not that we welcome suffering, but like the persecuted church is the perfect example of chapter 5 in the Middle East, in China. Like, they are holding on to Jesus, and like, there is no reason to hold on to him in the natural, because they're losing every freedom and every right. But they're like, but have you seen him? Have you seen what he looks like? When you find him, you're going to get it. And that's, I think, where like this chapter really encapsulates us, our evangelistic nature in the midst of suffering, of we become a sign and the wonder to the world of a strength outside of ourselves. And so that's chapter 5. And then chapter 6, she finds him. And he is I just got emotional. He is moved by her, because he's like, you didn't, in your darkest hour, you didn't turn from me. Like, the Lord is so about fidelity. Like, all throughout scripture, he is looking for a bride that is faithful. He is the faithful one, right? And so for him to watch her not turn, and this is like, like, give ourselves grace. Like I'm saying, we're going to walk these out more and more and more. And you may do like 80% one time and 50% another time, but that doesn't matter. Like, you're learning. We're in the classroom of Song of Songs our whole life. So just keep learning, keep going, keep being in the cycle. But it's in this process where the friends see the revelation of Jesus that she has, and they go, wait a minute, where is he? We want to go there too. And so they follow her to find him. And then they find him, they find this enraptured Jesus, who is just like, I picked a perfect partner. I picked somebody who is just as faithful as I am. Like, and he's praising her, and he just starts going off about how beautiful she is. And that's what's happening here. So when we go through a season where we've been beaten by the church and we have to look for Jesus, I would say take 6 months and go after what he says to you in the secret place about your faithfulness to him. Like, that's how we attach to him. Like, this is making sense. I feel like I'm not like explaining the cycle super well, but because there's just so much, but it's like being able to grab hold of these truths and be like, oh, I'm in a season where the church is betraying me. I need a revelation of Jesus, and I need him to love me in this as I stand, as I'm faithful, and getting that, like that, as you're standing for faithfulness or righteousness in an area of your life where people are coming at you and attacking you. It's like, turn to this chapter and be like, Lord, go back to the Hill of Incense and start praying this over you, of like, this is what God's saying about me in this season of my life. This, I am perfect. My dove, my perfect one is unique. The only daughter, the favorite one. Like, these are the scripts the Lord is declaring as you're standing with that friction, that south wind that's coming at you to try to get you off the path. But what it's doing is strengthening you. And then all of a sudden the friends, the young believers see this, who is this? Like, there she is, like, oh my gosh, she looks like the sun, you know, because she's coming into mature love. In this chapter 6 is where she is actually emerging as a partner of like, yeah, no, I can take that too, you know. And like I said, we're not inviting suffering, but just life is challenging. Like, life is challenging and betrayals happen. And this book really speaks to that. And so we kind of keep going into this next season. Oh, let me go real quickly. This is where we kind of go. And now that she's been tested and proved as a faithful partner, all of a sudden he opens up and he says, hey, I'm actually going to go down to the valley and I'm going to see if the vines are budding. And this is my personal interpretation, but I believe, and I wish I could go deeper into why, but I believe it's this early signs of revival is whenever you see the Lord say budding, he's like, oh, you've been proven, my partner. Now we're going to go after the billion soul harvest together. But there is a budding season, there's a blooming season. There's different things to do in either. And if you do the wrong thing in one, you can destroy it. So as we look at people's lives, when we're going in, now that she's been tested and approved and she's confident in who she is, she knows she's a willing partner. She got through the suffering and she held on to him. She's now ready to work the harvest with him. But and I really translate it as like, when we're going about our lives, a very simple question I ask on the regular with people that I'm ministering to or just popping around town with, are they budding or are they blooming? And I ask the Lord evangelistically, are they budding or are they blooming? Because if they're budding, I'm going to be very tender. I'm going to be very careful with that bud. I'm going to let it move as it wants to move. You know, I'm not going to like force it open and like throw a bunch of scripture on it, you know, or like, you know, evangelize them with a sign and a megaphone. Like I'm offended by a lot of that stuff because it's not how the Lord works. He's so process oriented with people. So that's kind of what's happening is here. The early signs of revival are showing up and he's teaching her how to cultivate the bud, right? To not be abrasive or harsh with the bud, but to love the bud and let it have its season, you know? And then 7 is really about, I could go into this deeper. I wish I had more time, but really it's about multiplication and fruitfulness. It's all about her body and it's about her. That's when we're starting to multiply and we're seeing like spiritual sons and daughters and real sons and daughters come out of our lives because of our faithfulness and our ability to lead people. And that's really what's happening here is that, oh, beautiful, your sandaled feet, oh, princess daughter. It's a reference to like a good news or the people who have, is it like that peace? What is that verse in Isaiah? Like the good news of people carrying peace or something, like the sandals of peace. Like this is a reference to that of like the evangelistic call to multiply throughout the nations. And that's really what chapter 7 is this woman who is birthing movements now. She's actually, it talks a lot about her fertility. That's kind of what's going on in here. And then just, she's so confident in herself, right? And at this point, she's like, I belong to the beloved. His desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside. And so she's now egging him on. Like she's now actually wanting to do things, you know, she's got a mind of her own. She's like, actually, Jesus, like it's kind of like David, you know, he like decides one day, I want to do this 24/7 worship thing. And the Lord's like, oh, really? Like, and all of a sudden, like, you know, he like creates this worship movement in Israel and God never told him to do that. But the Lord's like, yes, like, I like that, you know, I'm going to like put my stamp of approval, but you know, you're not going to be able to build the temple. But like then David just goes out to town to make sure that his son can build the temple. I mean, like think about the generational inheritance that Solomon got to build the temple. And really that was a man's idea. It wasn't the Lord saying, go build a temple for me, you know? And so I think that's like where we start to realize we have a mind of our own with the Lord, and he really cares about how we contribute to the conversation of our assignment. And there's just this confidence in us that he's like, you want to do that? Let's do it. I've had so many times the Lord's been like, oh, really? Yeah, let's do it. And then he's put the check down and I'm like, whoa, you meant it. Like, I'm like, wow, you know, but it all comes into that season when we're starting to look outward. You know, when you get married and you have kids, you're learning to die to yourself again and again and again. The more kids you have, the more you're dying. It's like, you're just losing, you know, it's like money, time, sleep. Like that's really what's happening in this chapter is maturity, growing to live a life for someone else. And her influence is expanding. And finally, my favorite chapter is the full-blown Song of Songs, co-equal partner. She reflects him, you know, and, you know, she is just absolutely looks just like it. It's like, who is this coming out of the wilderness, leaning on her beloved? The secret is leaning. We can't do it alone. The secret is union. This whole book is about her union, her partnering, her talking with him, her listening to him, her attachment being built at the safe line of connection. And then like she remembers where she used to be at the apple tree. And now, you know, she's begging him for like, I want to like she actually is right asking for a martyr's death right here. She's like, I want to be able to love you so much that I could die for you. And that's what she's asking. And that this is the wholest, like, this is like Joan of Arc right here. Like this was the cry of Joan of Arc's heart of like, I'm going down with you, you know? And the Lord is just like, I will do it. I will seal you with fire. If you want that kind of love, I'll do it. You know, and then all of a sudden it becomes about like the friends kind of go, say we have a sister, you know, and who will speak for her. And really that's about the next generation coming up of the mothering and fathering of the next generation. And then we kind of keep going into this about like, you know, my vineyard is mine to give. Like she's fully giving herself to this man. And what I love about it is the last thing is she says to him what he said to her in chapter 4, which is, come away, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on the spice-laden mountains. And so she's now egging him on to go to the suffering mountain. Isn't that crazy? And that what I just want to land on, thanks for like letting me go 20 minutes over, is just, this is a duet. This is two people singing back and forth to each other through 8 chapters of life that have very parallel things of ones that we struggle with and we deal with. But if we can get a vision for who we're becoming, we have the courage to start where we are today. So thanks, guys. For listening.
That's so good.
That's so good.